Museum Africa. My name is Pholoso. I'm the Curator of Costumes and Textiles here at Museum Africa in Newtown, Johannesburg. I would like to take you on a journey to costumes and textiles going back to 1800s at least, and going back to as early as 1920s and early 1900s. So come with me and I'll take you on this journey. Hello, so this exhibition is in partnership with Women in Power because the costume and textile collection is 99% female. So as a result, we want to empower women using clothing and textiles and see the difference in discourse as to how fashion changed over the years and how women can use clothes and textiles to empower themselves. So Women in Power moving forward aims to establish that women are not just locked or bound in one segment in fashion or in art one way. So using fashion and textiles, as you see around us, we hope to do that moving forward. So here at Museum Africa, part of the collection that I look after is called the Costumes and Textile Collection. So this collection dates back to at least 1800s regarding shoes, dresses, hats, gloves and things of that sort, accessories, and as early as the 1900s, so things of that sort. However, part of the dresses that we focus on are dresses from the 1800s, like the one next to me. So the dress next to me dates back to at least 1810. During this time, I should tell you that the dress was more important than the female. By that I mean the dress was designed around the female. So as a female, you're not really important. So if you're big boned or plus size, you have to work around the dress, not the other way around. So if you can see, the waist is very narrow and the skirt is very open. But the reason why that is because there needed to be a reason to accentuate sexuality. Which is ironic considering the fact that in Africa, women are naturally big-boned, but in Europe, women are naturally slim. So why the need to run after that which is curvaceous and voluptuous, if you can use the word. So the reason why we have such collections is to learn from the fashion of the past and how we can engage with the dress sexually in a much more sexual, intellectual manner, or how we can talk about how fashion has evolved. So this next to me is one of the earliest garments that we have, dated from the 1810 era. And it's my hope today and moving forward is that people can learn what fashion was like then and how it is now. So one of the garments that I curate here in Museum Africa in Newtown, Johannesburg are garments that date back to at least 1820s, 1840s. This garment on my right is actually an evening gown, dating back to the 1840s. So the idea is to be as modest as possible. So in other words, cover up as much as you can, but still have a touch of class as you're going out. However, if you look at it, we kind of have a problem here. She's very much exposed. But that is deliberate from my side as a museum curator, because part of curatorship is to challenge the status quo as to what needs to be seen or what can't be seen or otherwise, and to create a dialect between the curator and the public. So the reason why she's exposed like this is that she is not supposed to be like this at all. There's actually a garment that covers up her torso, but I deliberately left it out because I want to touch on sexuality and garments and clothing. Even though sexuality and these garments sort of clashes, there's a juxtaposition, I want to remove the juxtaposition because I want to have an engagement. So the idea is that whose sexuality is it? So who said that you can't wear a garment that has a touch of class, has a touch of dignity, but adds some sexuality, is it? As a person viewing the garments, do you own a woman's sexuality? Do you decide what she can wear, how? And secondly, when you make a dress today, or any garment of that magnitude, you can't control how it'll be worn. So as much as you, the designer, you can wear it, you cannot control who wears it and how. If anything, I'll even argue that's really none of your business, because frankly, you just design it and now it's up to the universe. It's not really up to you. So now there's sort of a clash, if you will, between the wearer and the designer. So who controls what, especially when it comes to sexuality. So when you look at this, that is what I want to touch upon. And so yes, if you are offended by this, I'm glad. Because now, intellectually, I will engage with you, and hopefully that will happen sooner. So, using some of the garments from the costume and textile collections, this is what I hope to achieve. So, one of the interesting aspects about the costume and textile collection here at Museum Africa are the different variations and varieties of dress that we have. To my right is what I have, believe it or not, a wedding dress. So I know you might be thinking that a wedding dress is supposed to be white, but that is not really the case. And one of the fascinating things is that during this era, so this is the early 1900s, Even though the wedding dresses were firm, again, accentuating the waist, femininity, the colors actually differed. So you had wedding dresses in pink, blue, beige, yellow even, that are in the costumes and textiles collection that I have here. So the question is why? And I, as a curator, I find an irony here. Right now, today, it is a must, from what I see, that a woman must have white and white wedding dress. But why is it that back then, where it was so patriarchal, women were able to break that boundary, break those walls? So, in other words, women back then were much more creative, I'll argue, than they are now. Because even though they were like held back, they were so creative, they were so thinking outside of the box, but they were doing it in a very, very subtle way. So this gown to my right is actually like a proper wedding dress. Even the designs, the buttons, she still holds a femininity. And I should say again, there is no covering for her torso for this garment, absolutely none. But yet, she's still feminine, she's still very classy, she still owns herself. So, whereas now, that's not really the case. And that's what I want to do, is sort of like engage with women today, is why does a wedding dress has to be white? Who told you that a wedding dress must be white? Flip the coin, however, traditionally, gowns are very, very different, right? So you married in your own cultural thing. So when we walk down the aisle in a church, it has to be white. I should say, however, that came in the Victorian era. So when Queen Victoria actually married in white, so that became a standard moving forward. But now it's very, very universal. But I think it will serve women well when they learn from the past in order to influence the present and how they can influence fashion today. Part of the collection at Museum Africa here in Newtown, Johannesburg, is that I also work with what I call extravagant garments. So on the right of me is a dress dating back to the 1920s. You'll notice that on all the garments that I spoke about thus far, women were very constrained in dress-wise or in gowns. Like I said before, the gown was more important than the woman, not the woman herself, so she had to suffer for beauty, as it were. But in this era, there was a change, a big markup change. So as we can see here, the neckline is very low. So she had to accentuate her breast area, not too much, but her femininity had to be in touch, which you can see her breasts are not that exposed. And the delicate lacing was very much part of the extravagance that was part of it. And the design, the patterning, which I do not think was hand-stitched. It is too perfect because the machinery at that time was not really up to scratch. But nevertheless, the dress itself is very flowy. It moves around, which gives her freedom to do what she wants to do. And it's very flowery as well. It's very summery, this dress, if you look at it. But this era was actually marked by huge shifts. Socio-culturally. So for instance, we do know for a fact that women started playing sports in this era. So sports like tennis, badminton, there's also some beachwear associated with this era. Women could go to the beach wearing shorts, they're much more free in open spaces. And even like culturally, in the arts, so films like The Great Gatsby of that sort, if you watch them and you see dresses like this, that's because they came from that era. Even the hairstyles, she doesn't have one now, but like the hair was much, much shorter instead of like being long and being feminine. So it was her way of saying, you know, I'm bossy without saying I'm bossy. But despite this, even economically, there was a big change. Europe was doing really, really well at this time, and you have a lot of artists like, I forgot who wrote this novel. All the novels actually moving from America to go to Europe, because even though it was in the 1920s, you still had that frigidity in the US compared to Europe. And it was a beautiful era marked with style, marked with grace. Women owned their sexuality for the very first time, and it was accepted. I think that was the most thing, it was accepted. Most men actually prided themselves in having women dressed like this versus before. So you can see from this dress alone, there's not much care in accentuating her femininity, her hips, her boobs, her buttocks. She's free, she's like, take me as I am, and if you don't, that's your problem. If you do, let's continue with life. So part of the collections that I have here at Museum Africa as curator that I manage is that the 1920s era was an era in which women's fashion was very much flary, it was very much colorful, And to my right is actually a product of that. So this is a dress from the 1920s as well. It is black with nice sequencing and white beading. So again, displaying the creativity that women are exercising. Again, it was an era which was synonymous with style and class. But I should say as well that it was an era where women actually pushed their agenda politically using dresses like this. It was a way of saying that you can't keep us bound forever. You cannot do this for all while we are still here. So if you notice with the suffragette movements, where women were burning their bras, so they did it first, but without going to that extreme. So it was an era where women were very relaxed with their bodies. It was an era where I would argue again is where the ideal body came into being, where the slender body became much more important. So now you have the rise of like fashion plates where designers were designing clothes, and they're using these garments like this one as well to accentuate that. So the question is, whose standard of beauty is it? Because up until today we have this problem where models are very, very skinny, and to get sort of like plus size models, it is a problem. Granted, magazines like Vogue did a cover where they had like plus size women on the cover of a Vogue magazine. I forgot which issue. However, when you see the cover, she's not really accentuated 360. You do not see her curves, you do not see her structure. She's actually standing sideways in between quote-unquote skinnier models. So that problem actually started in this era where the ideal body was manufactured and women had to like rise to that occasion. However, at the same time, it was not a bad era in that women actually started being free for the very, very first time. Unlike before, like I said, where the dress was much more important than the woman, not the woman herself. So if you're big boned, unfortunately, you're gonna have to suck it in. So, but now that era was dead and gone, and there was like a flow up until this. So it is my hope as well as curator that we can also learn such garments, that how we learn from the past to the present and how we can link the both together. Ladies and gentlemen, part of the collection that I look after regarding the 1920s exhibition is that there are accessories. So what I'm holding right now is, believe it or not, a feather fan that actually was an accessory used by women in the 1920s era. So the idea is to be as extravagant as possible. So if you can see, this feather fan is quite huge. It's orange, it's wide as well, and the handles are made of tortoise shells. So the idea is to be very classy, very extravagant. However, you can actually play around with them as well. So this one is very, very orangey. So ideally is that you're gonna match with an orange dress. However, you can compare and contrast and juxtapose. Say you have an orange feather fan like this one and have a green dress or a purple dress. That can work as well. So during this time, again, back to my point, is that women were very, very playful with fashion. This feather fan, however, is quite unique. It has profound historical value, as all the other collections that I look after. So this one actually belonged to Princess Alice of Kensington in the UK. So it was donated here a long time ago, and we acquired it, and it belonged to this era. So it belonged to her as well, so you can actually fan it like so, and then it moves. So you can imagine her at an event, like fanning herself, doing whatever. And so that's the whole idea. I laugh because like, you would think that during this era that women were sometimes like stiff, right? But no, this feather fan actually proves just that. It was not the case. So yeah, so this era was marked with profound creativity, like I keep saying, and it is my hope that women can be empowered moving forward with their creativity in fashion. And I have another. So another feather fan, coming back from the 1920s. So this one, see, like proper feathers, like, so also tortoise shells. So the style actually continued. This one was more linked to the arts, so to speak. So it was owned by a stage actress named Freda Godfrey. She, upon my research, she actually hit the shores of South Africa some centuries ago, or a century ago. And so yeah, so it actually links up with the arts as well. So it's not just because like it was extravagant and it was royal, it belonged to those kind of people. No, the arts actually took it upon. case in point. So if you watch films like The Great Gatsby again, you're going to see women having this stuff. So it's a way of like seeing how fashion actually transcends different industries. And it is my hope that I want to keep it as such.
My name is Zinhle Mabena and I am an actress. I'm a mother, but more than anything, I'm a woman in power. So I think more than anything, there are relationships I'm going to get into, but I'm going to start off with the most important one because I feel like that is the relationship that sets the tone for the other relationships that you're going to have with other people. And that is the relationship that you have with yourself. I found out that the relationship that I had with myself was very important because the more I loved myself, the more I was less tolerant of things that either make me or break me, but more than anything, break me. I learned how to choose myself first, how to put myself first. And with that being done, I started understanding and knowing who I am and what it is that I want to do and what it is that I would like to offer. And when you're in that space, then you're able to appreciate yourself, love yourself more with your flaws and everything. And it means in my case, then you become a better mother. You know, you're able to raise kids that you are able to one day put out into society and be comfortable that my son will be someone's husband and will do a good job at it. And same applies with my daughter. You know, she may be someone's wife and she'll do a good job at it. But those are not significant relationships in their lives. But what I'm just saying is that you're not gonna put somebody out there who's going to be troublesome. And then of course it's going to be a relationship with my mother. And that relationship was very important to me. I lost my dad at a very young age. So she took the primary role to be a caregiver to me and my siblings. And she was a mom and she was a dad. So with that, it was the first introduction to me on what love should be and what it should look like. And, you know, she did a stellar job in showing me that. So that played a huge role for me. You know, she showed me the importance of family, the importance of listening more than being heard. And, you know, the importance of patience, the importance of putting your message across out there without being aggressive. And I've learned that, you know, when a wise person speaks, people listen. And that's my mom. And wisdom cannot be bought. You get it through life experiences. You get it by the people you surround yourselves with. And that's how it worked with that relationship. She taught me how to be wise, she taught me how to love, and she taught me how to be a woman of substance. And then of course it was my brother as well. My brother taught me resilience, and he taught me being true to yourself. He doesn't bend. He doesn't go with the latest trends. He's not fazed about anything or anyone. That, you know, he stays current in terms of current affairs. He moves with that, and he invests in his time in building himself and making sure that the people that he cares about are well taken care of. And that, I think, is something that every man should do. And he got his master's degree in architecture a bit late in life. He worked, he studied, got his diploma, got his BTech, and studied further still, you know. So that's resilience. You can imagine, there was a guy that I went to high school with, and he was in class with my brother. There's a 10-year gap between my brother and I. So you can imagine how old he was in the class. He was probably amongst one of the eldest people, but he kept it moving and he kept it going, you know. So that falls into truly believing in yourself and staying rooted in what you believe in, but more than anything, remembering who you are and why you started in the first place, essentially. When it comes to my health, anybody who knows me will tell you that I'm not doing the greatest. I am trying, however, to take better care of myself. It's not as easy as people make it seem. Herbalife people really make it seem like it's a walk in the park. It's not. But it is important. And I've noticed that on all the times when I've started taking better care of myself, when my health would improve, or not necessarily that I would have health problems, but I just started to eat better, you know, make better choices when it comes to what you drink. A lot changes. How you think changes, how you feel changes, you know, your decision making changes. And I can honestly say that I've put in a lot of effort in making sure that I stay healthy, because I come from a family of diabetic people and people with blood pressure. I've seen what it's done to them. And I made a vow that I will never be that kind of person. For instance, with my sugar intake, I make sure that I take as little as I can, because I've got a mom who's very diabetic. And I remember how distraught I was when I found out that she was diabetic. And it's something that I wouldn't want to put my kids through as well. I once had a health scare. Throughout high school, actually, when I started my period, my periods were extremely unbearable. The minute they start, the following day, I would literally I'd have to go to the hospital to get morphine and stuff like that, you know, and then suddenly I can be able to, you know, work or do whatever it is that I need to do. I'd be able to function. But I had a very, very terrible experience with regards to my period. And then I remember there was a time, I think I was in matric. My period had just ended. And then 2-3 days later, all of a sudden, I was just bleeding profusely. It was bad. It was bad. And then I had to be admitted into hospital. And when I got admitted into hospital, we found out that I had a severe case of endometriosis, and I had a whole lot of ovarian cysts and stuff like that, and I had to get operated on. And then now came into play the whole dynamic, will you be able to have kids? And you know, it was a 50-50. And luckily for me, when I was in hospital, on the day that I was supposed to get cut up so that they can operate on me, when the doctor did the my x-ray, they found out that my ovarian cysts had shrunk immensely, which was something that they also weren't expecting. So the operation didn't go ahead as planned. However, fast forward a couple of years later, I fell pregnant. When I fall pregnant, my pregnancy is an ectopic, which means that my baby is growing in my tube. And I found out really late when I was in pain, when my tube had ruptured already. When I got cut up and they operated on me, they found out that my tube was positioned in a strange way, which could have been the results of the endometriosis. And I say this because it's somehow, we speak about endometriosis a lot, but somehow I don't think people are getting it. They don't get the damage that it does. They don't get how painful it is. Not only to be told that, okay, fine, there's a possibility that you might not have children, but that every month you have to go through this excruciating pain and you don't have a choice. Your body forces itself naturally to go through that, you know? And I think it's something that we should speak about more, we should stand up more about, and definitely emphasize that it is damaging and can possibly even be life-threatening, you know? So that is health scares that I've come across. I'm trying my best. I really am, you know? But yeah. People will be amazed, you know, to know that I started making money at a very young age. I was an entrepreneur, hardcore. In primary school, I was selling sweets. I would go buy sweets, like a bulk of sweets, and sell them on the bus, sneak them in class, sell, you know, that's me. So I've been making money for quite a while now. I think my mom literally stopped supporting me when I was about 13, 14, you know? So I secured my first job when I was 12. And I've been making money ever since. I stopped making money, however, when I was 18, going into varsity actually, I think 2 years. It was dry, I wasn't making money. And that's when the life lessons came. And that's when the financial lessons came. I've never really been somebody who was wasteful with money. But when you know what money feels like, and when you know the comfort of having money coming in, especially from a young age, and when you take good care of yourself, you depend on no one, and that stops, then now you have to do some introspection, you know. Like I said, when I get money, I make sure that I always put money aside. Even if I get 50 Rand, I'll spend 40 Rand. I'll make sure that something else is there. That's just who I am. And I think that is driven from the fact that I've never really fully known what it's like to be broke and be hungry. I don't come from a family like that. I was fortunate enough to be raised in a family, you know, that can stand on its own and stuff like that. And I've always had the phobia of not having money. So my mom taught me the value of money early in my life. And in that way, even when I don't have a job, I'm able to sustain myself. It's so important when you've got money not to be driven and not live current, but also think about the future, no matter how boring that may seem. That is something I'm probably even going to teach my children. They'll definitely know the value of money, because I think we as black people, and I'm probably going to get a beating for this, but we as black people, especially in our generation, we like making up for the mistakes that, you know, maybe our parents did in the past. But sometimes what we view as mistakes may not necessarily be mistakes, but it may be lessons. You know, I don't believe in buying my child a car when she's not responsible to have a car just because I can afford to. No. There's the difference between struggling and making sure that your child lives comfortably. And then there's living comfortably with lessons. So I think ultimately when it comes to finances, that's the kind of person that I'm going to be. That's the kind of person, that's the kind of mother that I'm going to be as well. Finances, big, yes, but when it comes to being clumsy with money, big no. You always have to think about tomorrow. Whether you're going to die tomorrow or you're going to die 50 years from now, that is, unfortunately, that's the luxury that you don't know, that you don't have, to know when you're going to die. But it is important that you create a luxury for yourself where at least you know that you're comfortable and you're set with your money. And what do I like spending my money on? Ish. My kids. And my food. I'm a very stingy person towards myself, actually. When I think about it, I don't really spend much money. Nah, I'm not very careless with money. That's just who I am. That's just who I've always been. Are you sure it's not about sex? Okay, sexuality. Okay, this is a very funny one. Because growing up, I'm sure you can see my features. It's not features that you normally see on the street every day, you know, it's not features that you bump into, you know. It's not every woman that's got like these big lips, you know, that are just like here, and these high cheekbones. So, high school, primary school. Based on my features, I don't think I was the cutest girl at school, you know. I'd always be teased about my lips. I'd always be teased about my high cheekbones. Then I got into varsity, and boy oh boy did that change. Then I learned that actually these features are quite sexy. In primary school and high, let's put primary school aside because I was dumb. I think in grade 11 and, you know, matric, that's when I now started realizing that actually I'm a woman, and I appreciated what I looked like more than anything in varsity. And it gave me a lot of confidence. Anybody who knows me knows, number one, I'm very wild. Not wild as in crazy, but I'm very expressive and I'm a free spirit. So my sexuality is something that I embrace a lot. I love being a woman. I love my curves. And I love these little things that actually point out who I am. And, you know, now I'm moving good sexuality and I'm starting to add sex. When it comes to, I think, I'm gonna say this as a woman. It's very important for me to say it. I was a firm believer of, I don't want to say when I lost my virginity because actually I'm going to get into trouble with my mom, so I'm not going to get into that. But when you are aware of what it means to be a woman, when you are aware of the power that you hold as a woman before you speak, in your stance, in you coming in and filling up a room, then you understand your sexuality. You understand the huge role that it plays. You understand that you don't need to dim yourself down, but you have to embrace it. And it creates a platform where people can respect you, because we are human at the end of the day. And even with all these things that exist, whether it's money, whether it's the high life, we remain consistent with one thing: we are human, and we find ourselves attractive. But yeah, sexuality for me as well is all about finding yourself attractive. First and foremost, I believe that we are spiritual beings. And everything and anything that we do is determined by a higher power. Now, we've been given the luxury of making choices in our lives. I do, however, believe that when you're making choices that are not in line with your destiny, then the universe and spiritually, you will be forced to go back in line and to go back onto the path that you should be on. So definitely, I believe in spirituality a lot. I am a Christian. I pray a lot. I believe that there's a higher power, and that being God. And I believe that we are all brought on this earth to do something. When our purpose has been fulfilled, then our journey here on earth ends. I truly believe that. I also believe that with spirituality, there's a lot of calming in it. There's a lot of soothing in it. And there's a lot of assertion and backing that you'll be fine. It's very important to find yourself within that space. Whether you want to be Christian or not, that is your business and that is your journey. But it is very important to align yourself. Because like I said, we are spiritual beings. And before I meet somebody else, I start with myself. That has assisted me a lot in terms of battles that I fight day to day. It brings comfort to me knowing that it's not over yet. And by it's not over yet, there are journeys and there are things that I still need to fulfill. And up until that's done, then we can be done. It gives me confidence, and it gives me some sort of peace as well in my life. And it gives you are able to stand firm in who you are. It's a sort of a sense of identity. You need a sense of belonging. Before you even start and you want to belong to a family or you want to belong to, you need a sense of belonging with yourself, and you need a sense of belonging spiritually as well. If those things don't coexist, then your life will be chaotic. So you need some sort of guidance. You need some sort of order, and that is where it starts first. So yeah, that's what it's always been for me. Praying has assisted me a lot. Fasting has assisted me a lot. And acknowledging that, surrendering and acknowledging that there are certain things that you cannot control. And allowing things that you cannot change to be. That comes with a lot of wisdom, but also that comes with a lot of trust spiritually. Yeah. Wow, a lot of people, I'm turning 29 this year. Yeah. I'm turning 29 this year. I've been in the industry since I was 12. I've watched a lot of people fall along the way and not make it up. I've watched a lot of people remain consistent. I've watched a lot of people blossom and bloom and becoming bigger, you know. I've been blessed to be in this industry and still remain relevant up until now. I always say I would love to produce, I would love to be on radio, I would love to even be a TV presenter. I'm an all-round entertainer and I know that I was born for this. It is in my DNA. It's God-given, it's a gift, it's a talent, it's a calling, and it's definitely, I'm not making a mistake. I've not reached my peak. I definitely have not even reached the middle of the route that's taking me to my peak. So there's a lot in store for me. I still want to tap into the acting space. I still want to continue playing roles that I haven't played before. I have aspirations of being behind the scenes. I would love to do a documentary and love to do a movie and maybe even a 5-part drama series. Definitely some things that are on the line. But I still feel there's an opportunity for me as well as an actress to tap into other roles. I haven't exhausted my options as yet when it comes to the different characters that are there to play. And man, oh man, there's still so much to be done as an actress. And then definitely going to tap into behind the scenes, a lot of productions that I've spoken to, a lot of writers that I've already spoken to. So that will eventually materialize. But yeah, right now I'm still enjoying a lot of acting. I still feel like I haven't played enough villains, and I would still love to do that.